Welcome back to the Fuel Your Legacy podcast. Each week, we expose the faulty foundational mindsets of the past and rebuild a newer, stronger foundation essential in creating your meaningful legacy. We've got a lot of work to do, so let's get started. As much as you like this podcast, I'm certain that you're going to love the book that I just released on Amazon, Fuel Your Legacy, The 9 Pillars to Build a Meaningful Legacy. I wrote this to share with you the experiences that I had while I was identifying my identity, how I began to create my meaningful legacy, and how you can create yours. You're going to find this book on Kindle, Amazon, and as always on my website, samknickerbocker.com. Welcome back to the Fuel Your Legacy show. And I'm telling you guys, I'm so grateful that Todd reached back out to come on the podcast again. There's a handful of guests that I definitely wanted to have back at some point. He was one of them. And I'm super excited. I should have looked up, maybe I'll look up while he's telling his story a little bit, the previous episode, the first episode, so you can go back and listen to the first one and see the contrast of where he was then, what his goals were, what his vision was, and how that's changed. Because it's been about a year or close to, maybe a little bit over. So the pandemic hadn't happened. Business was one way, and now it's changing the way that is for the better. In a lot of cases, I know for me, my business has gotten way better because there was a lot of people who wanted to meet in person. And then once the whole world of all age demographics said no, in fact, the people who were the most resistant to meet in online are now the ones who want to meet online the most. The older generation, they were the ones, I don't want to learn technology. I'm not doing this. Let's meet in person, face to face, kneecap to kneecap. And then pandemic happens. They're like, please don't ever come close to me. Can we do this online? I'll figure it out. And it's like, this is music to my ears. Like what it did for certain industries. I know other industries got smoked, and that's unfortunate, but I know for my industry, it really made it a lot better. Because now I have the whole United States open to me rather than just my little local area. So
sure, makes complete sense.
It was a win for me, but I want to hear how it was a win for you. So to give you a little background on Todd, just the interesting thing, if you're not watching this on YouTube, he is a collector. So he has some hobbies that I think are, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can't deny them. I mean, they're everywhere. It's not just some fake background that somebody put on the back of their Zoom. It's legit. He loves baseball. It's a hobby, a passion of his, which is cool to understand that a lot of the people that are the most successful that I know, they really enjoy their fun things. They really enjoy their hobbies. So that's something that if you do more research into him, you'll find out. But he's also a super successful businessman, built multiple businesses, and then decided, well, I'm going to get into coaching, started off coaching with one version or one idea of how much he wanted to do coaching. But then he fell in love with it, and that's shifting. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And then also, I know there's just so much to say about this guy. I love it. But he's an author. He's written multiple books. And today we're going to talk about one of his books that's going to be coming out. And it's about how to suck to success. I love it because it's so true. Anybody who's successful, they just sucked a lot more than the other person for long enough to where they got better. That's all that happened. Nobody's special. Nobody I know, the most successful people I know, it's like, nah, there's nothing special about that person other than their ability to be persistent. And I think that is ultimately what will win out is persistence and willingness, humility enough to learn and grow. So thank you, Todd, so much for coming on. Just share with us where you're, like, a little bit of your backstory for those who didn't listen to the previous one, but I'd rather them go back and listen to your full backstory there. So just talk about where you were at last time we talked and what's changed? What happened, during this pandemic?
Yeah, it's been crazy in a really interesting way. 30-second story. I was a CEO for 27 years, started as an entrepreneur. 10 years into my journey, I was by that point $600,000 in debt. The bank called my note. I was 2 months away from having all of my money gone. My son and I were going to be homeless. That's the brutal facts of what I was dealing with back in 2006. And for the first time in my entrepreneurial career, I raised my hand and I hired a coach and I got help. The coach came in, taught me some financial literacy, came in, helped me work on changing the employees I had, the culture I had. But most importantly, that coach worked on changing me as the leader. Inside out leadership is what he really imparted upon me because I was very, very good at blaming the outside world for my reality. I was very good at saying, I was taking either the victim role or the martyr role. And he said, we've got to help you change the way you approach things, your mindset from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. So over the next 15 years, I made a lot of pivots and a lot of changes within my business. I made a lot of changes within myself as the leader of that business and paid off all the debt. In that point, we discovered in the human capital space, we were in the staffing company. We were a staffing company. We found an increased demand and diminished supply sector for skilled trades talent around the United States. Welders, machinists, people like that. We doubled down on that. We went deeper into a very tight vertical niche, and we hockey sticked the business. We went from, again, being $600,000 in debt to being on the Inc. 5000 as one of America's fastest growing companies, a crazy 6 times. I retired from that business, a little bit about 4 years ago, and got into coaching. I'd been coaching people on the side, and it was kind of my side hustle. I was speaking at universities and speaking at entrepreneurial conferences, telling the story of how I went from suck to success. And I was able to really get great momentum around that practice, found that I really loved helping entrepreneurs on their hero's journey towards success. And then, boom, the pandemic hit. I was supposed to be on 6 different stages across 3 different countries, and that was all knocked out through no fault of anyone. And I had a pity party for a couple of days. I'm not going to lie to your audience. And I realized, I doubled down on, why do I do this? Why do I take time away from my family, take time away from my fun office with all my baseball memorabilia? And why do I go on the road and talk? Well, I do that so that I can improve lives. I worked with Simon Sinek a dozen years ago and came up with the 2 words that matter to most to me: improve lives. It dawned on me I can improve lives from my house. I can improve lives from my favorite space, my office here, and I can do it in a virtual sense. So I decided I was going to go on a virtual entrepreneur tour, and I first volunteered the daylights out of everything. I put messages on social media rooms that I would coach anybody for 30 minutes for free to help them get unstuck around chaos and crisis and help them deal with the uncertainty that the pandemic had brought into their world. I then paired up with 2 other entrepreneurs, Nigel Bennett and Andy Biting, both from Canada. And we did a virtual 3 CEOs tour where we talked about tales from the edge. And I did that every single day. I kept myself busy. And the last thing I did is I completed my book, From Suck to Success, A Guide to Extraordinary Entrepreneurship. Because ultimately, the speaking opportunities, the individual volunteering coaching opportunities, and now the book go to my core purpose of why I get out of bed every day. I want to improve lives. So I certainly had the pandemic impacted my business. But the crazy thing is like the 42 CEOs I talked to in 67 days, I didn't get any clients from that. What I've gotten from that is massive referrals. So my coaching practice has grown 300% since last March. And I'm super excited about it because I'm loving the work I do. Like we talked about in the pre-interview, I had a certain level of clients I wanted to attain, and I've already attained it. And now I'm trying to find other ways to fit more people into my calendar, because I find that it gives me energy. It doesn't deplete my energy, and I want to do more of it.
Yeah, I love that. So just before we dive in, if you guys want to go back and listen to his full story, it's episode 188. So it was in April 24th is when it got launched, but episode 188 of the Fuel Your Legacy show, you can go learn more about his story. But what I love about, I just wrote down a few different notes just from that, because I think this is huge, especially with the pandemic, because the reality is, whether we like it or not, the pandemic's not over. Some people were hoping, at the end of, it's just different. But people thought, 2020's a wash. They decided this in May of last year. We'll just ride it out, and then we'll get going in 2021 when the vaccine comes out, when everything settles down. Nothing's changed. Literally nothing has changed from May of last year to now. Everybody's still masking. Everybody's still social distancing. There's plenty of people who couldn't care less about what the government says. There's plenty of people who are fanatical about what the government says. And things haven't really changed. There's some regulation changing with the new presidency. There's some things changing, but on the grand scope of things are the same as they were in May of last year. And I don't, for better or worse, I don't really see them changing much this year. We could come out of this and everything could go back to what it was in 2019. But frankly, I don't see that happening right now. I mean, I think to your point, the world is a different place. Yeah, it just is what it is.
It just is, whether you're in the restaurant industry, I know those guys have been just, decimated. I know that hotels, hospitalities, destination resorts, certainly those are industries that have been impacted. So manufacturing, so have kids who go to school. I mean, how many seniors last year lost their prom? How many seniors last year lost their final sports season, et cetera, et cetera? How many kids getting out of college came into a job market that had we, when we spoke last, March, there were 7.6 million job openings. That's changed.
Yeah.
All those things have all changed in a very short period of time. So the reality is it is different. What's not different, like you talked about earlier, is an individual's choice to be resilient, an individual's choice to look at some of these things that have happened and recognize and realize, like I did, the pandemic actually happened for me, not to me. And by having happening for me, I've grown my business 300%. I've spoken literally from the United States to Canada to Mexico to Europe to Malaysia of all places. I never would have got to speak in Malaysia. The distance, the cost, it just wasn't going to happen. So a lot of it happened for me. And if we can just have more of that growth mindset that things happen for us, not to us, and certainly. And I just broke this down for somebody the other day. They said, well, what if I'm in a car accident? Did that happen for me or did that happen to me? I said, let's break it apart. You're driving on the road through no fault of your own, texting Tammy in front of you hits you. Not your fault. That's wrong space, wrong time. Okay. But as soon as you're hit and as soon as you're in that process, how you react to it is your choice. How you pivot through that experience is your choice. Not that, yes, you were hit, but you then own the rest of that journey, whether it's from thank goodness where everybody's safe or to get angry. You own all of that. That's yours to own. The pandemic, no one caused it. It happened. Now, how do we handle it?
Yeah, I completely agree. And I would say it's an easy out to say nobody caused it. But that doesn't necessarily, for me, that principle doesn't apply everywhere. And so I have to go deeper. Even if I know who caused it, it still doesn't matter. Even if there was some evil genius in some lab that released this on the world, right? Even if that's now like Dr. Evil has just popped into my mind. Thanks, Sam, for that great image of Mike Myers saying we're gonna infect 1 million people. Yes, but like even if that happened, it still doesn't matter because there's a lot of people who listen to this podcast and there's sexual abuse survivors, there's physical abuse survivors, there's emotional, mental abuse survivors. And there's a lot of people that listen to this show. And the reality is it doesn't matter. Now I'm not here to say that your pain isn't real or any of that, but the reality is we've got to understand, who do you blame? I think blame. So I had this conversation with my brother a while ago because he was trying to tell me that in the coaching space, it was wrong that some coaches will charge, $10, $15, $20, $50,000 for coaching. And then if the person they're coaching doesn't get results, then the coach should give their money back. And I was like, no, it's not there's not really a fault and there's not really a blame. Like the person,
but there is a responsibility.
There's only responsibility and accountability. And for somebody to blame somebody, even that, I think the word blame is only and this sounds bad, and I'm not saying this to hurt anybody's feelings, but it's only in a broken person's mindset.
So let's talk about that. That's a really interesting statement. So I coach. I've coached people informally for 18 years, and I've coached people full time for the last 4 years. I still use a coach. So I realize as a professional coach that I still need to receive coaching. If Tiger Woods can have a golf swing coach, I can have a coach. If Michael Dell can have a business coach, if Bill Gates can have a coach, if Steve Jobs had coaches, I can have a coach. I don't have everything figured out. And here's what my coach recently taught me about all these things is it's how we show up. And it's how we process it. And I'll tell you a quick story about him. So my coach's name is Daniel Friedland. He's out of San Diego, California. And his background is he's a medical doctor. He literally has studied the brain his entire life. So he really knows his stuff. November of 2020, we're on a conversation. He calls me out of nowhere and lets me know that he's received the unfortunate diagnosis that he has stage 4 brain cancer. And as a brain surgeon, he knew what the diet, I mean, there wasn't any bargaining there. It was just more looking at that. And this is just after he contributed the foreword to my new book. He wrote the opening of my book as a gift to me and as a contribution to my life. And he's on this call. I'm devastated. And he's telling the story about how he found out. And I said, I only have two questions for you. How did you process the initial news? I'd like to learn. How did you do that? And then how are you so calm on our call? Because the initial news devastated me. I was in fight or flight. I was in massive fear and reactivity. And then I told my family and I dealt with their reaction to it, which is, I mean, he's an adorable, wonderful human being. I mean, they were devastated. His sons are devastated. His wife's devastated. And then what he did, it was so smart. He goes, what is most important to me now? And what is most important to me in the time I have left? First question he asked. Second thing he decided was, he goes, I want to live the best of my life for the rest of my life. And so how do I do that? I am going to make cancer the defining moment of my life. And I've chosen that cancer's happened for me, not to me. So since then, he's like the Energizer Bunny. He's spoken more places. He's given more of his time and his knowledge. And he's created a YouTube channel to share the message of his life, to create a legacy, but also to show people that cancer can happen for you, not to you. Now, certainly a lot of awful things have happened to a lot of awful people, or to a lot of wonderful people. And the fact that someone can take such an awful piece of news and within 72 hours pivot into something where now he's literally got a YouTube channel. He calls it his Netflix series. Every day he updates it. He contributes a video, and now his family's contributing videos. And he's literally teaching people how to go through the rest of their life and onto the next part of their journey through this universe. And he's literally showing people how to die. What an amazing gift.
Yeah, that's huge. That's gotta be, I can't imagine. I have a sister who has cancer, and it was interesting news for the first, I would say for the first month and a half. At some point you have to realize life is going to go on and you can't stop, and not to be insensitive to the people who have illnesses, but you don't have the illness and you've got to get up and keep working. Sympathetic illnesses don't help anybody. In fact, if you just got up and started working, maybe you could help them with their illness and bring more happiness and joy into their life. I want to talk about this idea of a coach. I've never thought of it this way before, but I'm curious your perspective. So generally, when we talk about getting a coach, most successful people I know, they're getting a coach that is going to coach them to level up.
Okay.
And I think the end goal of what I'm going to say is still to level up. But I don't know if you've ever noticed in your own working where your mindset, your ability to process information, whatever it is, it's just progressed so far past the average human being that you almost like there gets a point in time when you're actually living in completely two separate universes. And because of that, it's hard to communicate all the great things that to, we'll call the lay person who's still struggling to get out of bed in the morning.
Sure. So I reflect back because I was that lay person who had struggled to get out of bed. And I talk about it in the book. In 2006, I was clinically depressed. I couldn't get out of bed. So here's what I've learned. Everybody is on their first day of school. Everybody has to start a journey somehow. And as the coach, it's their journey. I'm the guide of their journey. And each of their journeys, all of my clients are exactly the same. They're all individuals, and I meet them where they are. And so if I've got a new client who sees me, I just had this happen. Got a new client starting in a couple of weeks. She saw me speak, and she actually saw me do a live coaching session with somebody. And with 3 questions, I changed the room. I only changed the room because the person who received those 3 questions was open to receive them. Mm-hmm. And I had to create a safe space for them. So I find that my first job as a coach is to create a safe space. Within that safe space, we get to authenticity, transparency, and vulnerability. And when we're feeling authentic, transparent, and vulnerable, our walls come down. And then we can learn. And I work with people who are survivals of trauma. I work with entrepreneurs who are in 12-step programs, who have drug addiction and alcohol challenges. I work with entrepreneurs who are abuse sufferers. I work with entrepreneurs and leaders who are looking for that external validation, and they're struggling to realize that to get the external, they have to do the internal work first. And the one tip I would tell anybody who wants to be of service to others, and that's what I see myself, I am a servant leader to others, I coach others, is to approach every single situation with massive curiosity. Massive curiosity, because it's been my experience that it's never, ever been what someone reports it to be, ever. So I have money problems in my business. That was my story. I didn't have money problems in my business. I had problems with me. But my coach, we worked through why I had money problems. How did I get there? The reality was, and this has been my experience, every problem in business is a people problem. People make decisions about money. People make decisions about marketing. They make decisions about other people on the team. They're all people problems. So the universal part of this becomes, for me, is I have to then approach every situation with massive curiosity. And I call it kind of taking them down the ladder. If someone reports that, I just had this happen. I had a leader said, I'm having a struggle selling a business unit, and I have a buyer, and I can't come to the table. Tell me more about that. Well, they want to buy my business, and I just don't know how to sell it. I said, okay, well, what part of the sales process do you think is holding you back? I can't come up with a price. Okay, why? Instead of saying, well, so this is what a lot of coaches would do. Well, have you hired someone to do a business valuation? Have you talked to your bank? They go to problem solving mode. I said, why don't you think you can come up with a price for the business? Well, I started it for next to nothing, and now it's worth a couple $1 million, and I feel guilty. Why do you feel guilty? Back to childhood, and this is like an hour call. Finally get back to, from childhood, I never felt good enough. And whenever I asked for what I want, I felt my critical parents didn't give me what I want. So I can't go to this negotiation and ask for a fair market value. Once this client had that breakthrough, that's when I started coaching. Most of my job is to actively listen. Most of my job is to then plug them into the active learning cycle, which I call my E4 process, to get them to get unstuck about what's holding them back. This client was massively competent, incredibly talented, and the business was worth what they were asking. And the crazy thing about it, Sam, is the buyer was willing to pay more. But it was the internal thing that was holding them back. We had to get them there, because giving them coaching around how to go negotiate a deal, or giving them coaching around how to get a business evaluation, was not what my client needed.
Mm-hmm. No, completely agree. So to add end to this question, because I think that's huge. One, active listening, understanding, and starting at the right place, meeting where they are. Do you think that you would ever, from a marketing perspective, hire somebody who you absolutely know has such a lower mindset of thinking processes, simply for the perspective of where they're coming from, so that you can say, okay, this is what I want to share. And then they're like, well, this doesn't make sense because of just to understand what their objections are. Would you pay them? Because in my mind, the value of getting somebody's honest response to myself or what I'm proposing, that's huge, right? Knowing what are they really thinking inside? What are they like? This is never going to work. The most, it sounds silly coming out of my mouth, but I'm just curious. The most pessimistic person you can think of, would you ever pay that person simply to be just the most pessimistic person you can think of, so that you can become more in touch with how people are thinking, so you can reach more people? Does that make sense?
So for me, it does make sense. I look at it as though in my mind, I have what I call an ideal client avatar. An ideal client avatar for the way I coach is someone who's willing to be a lifelong learner. It's someone who's willing to be self-aware. And I ask questions in my intake and interview process to see if they meet, I kind of, check the box, so to speak. Whether they're negative or not doesn't become a factor for me. And here's why. I just assume if they're curious, and I assume if they're willing to do the work, and I assume if they're willing to have some ownership in this process and be held accountable, that negativity will go away. The negativity will go away because it's wrapped up in fear and self-doubt. So what I do in my coaching process, I do negativity to me is more of a byproduct, not a root cause of the issue. The root cause is fear and self-doubt. Let's deal with that. Not the fact that you're negative Nelly or Daryl Downer. That's fine. Because as soon as they're negative with me, and as soon as they're Daryl Downering me, I ask them why they're doing that. Because I don't really know. Because I have to approach it with curiosity. So as we dig and we dig and we dig, and I earn their trust. I mean, this is a coaching the way I do it is a very much massively a trust relationship. So to earn their trust, I have to meet them where they are. And not everybody's, I've got one client who totally didn't believe a single thing I was telling him in the beginning, but he knew something, but he was like, "You're keeping me up at night." Really? Why do you think that is? Something's within a year, his revenue grew 70%, his profits grew 500%. Because the eating away was something was out of alignment within him. He had people on his leadership team that needed to go. Once they left and he put the right people in the right seats, the rocket ship took off. If I told him these people need to go, here's why they need to go, and I'm not going to work, and the takeaway clause, and I'm not going to work with you unless you fire them, he never would have worked with me. I had to meet him where he was. I had to listen to what was going on for him. I had to approach it with curiosity and get him to own his part in that, to get him to make the changes that were required to get him at 500% profit growth.
Mm-hmm. No, I love that. I think that it's an interesting exercise for me to think about where do I get that perspective from? Yes, there's a curiosity. What about all the people who don't make it through the filter? You determine they're not hungry enough. They're not these people.
Well, for me, it's not a matter of hungry. They're not ready. I just say they're not ready because I don't really know if they're hungry. I mean, a hungry person, if I think about a hungry person starving, they're going to gorge themselves and throw up too. So from my perspective, you've got to be ready.
So how do you help somebody become ready though?
I don't. I don't.
That's what I'm wondering. Cause I don't either. The reality is every person I know that's coaching, we just have these filters and we say, if you don't fit the filter, I'm going to spend my time where I'm getting the most bang for my buck. And that's not that's not money necessarily. Sometimes it's transformation. Sometimes there's a lot of other value exchanges as a coach and it's not just money, but I just wonder, how do we have that impact to help people get ready, if that makes sense?
So I've had a couple of clients that I thought were ready that weren't. I had a couple of clients that didn't do the work required. And they didn't do the work required because they weren't willing to show up. They weren't willing to be present, and they weren't willing to be prepared, and they weren't willing to lean into the uncomfortable. Coaching is a very uncomfortable occupation, and that's uncomfortable for the people we coach. And it's uncomfortable for us as coaches because we have to hold the space that when someone is having a light bulb moment or having an aha moment, or their itty bitty shitty committee is telling them how much they suck. At least the way I do it is I don't jump in and rescue them. I keep asking more questions. And I've had clients get very frustrated with me. And I ask them why they're frustrated. And they're frustrated because they want me to save them. This is your journey. I'm sitting up here at a 10,000 foot view watching you on your journey. And on your journey, you're going to turn right, you're going to turn left. And maybe when you turn left, you walk off a cliff. And when you turn right, you walk into a tree. But what if you just hold still and you think through what you want to do? And maybe you go back and then you go around. There's all these different choices we can make. It's all perspective. My perspective is 10,000 foot. Your perspective is on the ground. Getting them to get unstuck is something, the work they've got to do. My job is just to create the space for them to get unstuck. They've got to do the work. So I find that the clients that don't do well with the way I coach, they don't want to get unstuck. There's discomfort, or there's comfort in being uncomfortable for them. I don't always identify that in the beginning. So now I've gotten better at that if you're willing to be uncomfortable and that becomes comfortable for you, and you're not seeing that as a problem, I can't help you.
Yeah. Well, it's yes and yes and no. So I know exactly what you're saying, and I 100% agree with you. But just for the devil's advocate, because other people, they use the same phrase, but for a different meaning, right? That you need to get comfortable being uncomfortable, right? And what that means so we have this, I would say a chiasm, right? There's the negative uncomfortability because your life sucks and you can get comfortable in life sucking.
Yeah.
And then now you're comfortable. So now you're in the kind of the tip of the chiasm, and you then have to be willing to get uncomfortable doing something new, something better to get out of the crappy,
right.
Uncomfortable, but now comfortable or addicted position. Because you get addicted to the uncomfortableness of the suck rather than addicted to the growth uncomfortable. So it's
you just have to decide you don't want to do it anymore. I mean, it's really not that, it's not that hard, but it's that hard. So I've got clients in 12-step programs. Here's what they tell me. I got sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Yeah.
It just wasn't working for them anymore. Meaning I believe when you're ready, the coach will appear. When you're ready, in some cases the sponsor will appear or whomever. I just had this conversation with somebody about, the model of stress. Stress at its essence is neither good nor bad. It just is. It's the application we put on it. So we're talking the weekend before, the Friday before the Super Bowl. We're going to watch Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes operate with stress. Now, you talk to them, they probably won't sleep the night before because they're amped up. They're psyched. I want to go out there and I want to execute. I want to perform. And then something's going to happen, whether it's the collapsing of the line. There's going to be stress, and stress is neither good nor bad. It's how we process it. It's how we handle it. Stress can make us panic, or stress can make us focus. It's how we choose to interact with it. And I for a long time, used to just get I would tell people, I'm so stressed out. I'm so stressed out. It became almost an addiction. Like, I'm addicted to being stressed out. Well, it's just it's my choice to be stressed out. And there are times, certainly, I get in a fight or flight. I get triggered and reactive too. I do it a whole lot less. This is what I tell my clients too, when it comes to coaching. When you hire a coach, the coach isn't going to solve all your problems. Using a coach isn't going to solve everything. Here's three things that are going to happen. One, you're going to swap problems. So if you've got money problems, you don't have enough money. Well, as a coach, I'm going to get you to make more money. So now you have a new money problem. You have to pay too many taxes. It's a better money problem to have. The second thing is as you change out problems and you interact with things, you're going to get derailed less, but you're still going to get derailed. But the goal is to get you back on track more. So it's going to happen less, but it's still going to happen. But when it does happen, we're going to get you back on track more because I'm going to teach you how to self-coach. And then with my clients, at least I offer this thing called concierge service, where they text me, and if I've got time to talk to them, I will talk to them from wherever I'm at, because for me, this is the joy of coaching for me. This is why I want to have more clients. Is I love being in the moment with them when they're at their worst, when they're at their panic, when they're having their oh crap moments, and I help them get unstuck. And they have that light bulb go off, and they make massive change in the moment that propels them to where they want to go. That for me is the joy of coaching.
Yeah, I completely agree. That's why I love coaching. It's everything. I think coaching is kind of like, although we're changing people's lives, it's really a selfish thing because we just love seeing the transformation. And for me, at least, it's a reliving to a degree of my own transformation. It's like, oh absolutely. My gosh, like I remember exactly where you're at, and you get to relive that and that aha moment, that enlightenment every time. But the cool part about it is it's no longer just for you, but you get to see other people's lives change and see other people communicate better. I love it when people come back to me and say, hey, you saved my marriage. We were sitting down to a divorce. You helped us have a conversation that we've been struggling to have for 30 years, separated twice, whatever. And now we're communicating. We're having conversations. We've been able to reach this goal in this much, what we earned all of last year, we're able to do that in a month or 2 months because we're communicating clearly. It's like, I don't care if I ever get paid. Don't ever pay me. That is the payment of just like bringing tears to your eyes, knowing that transformation happened is the coolest thing.
I 100% align with everything you just said. It's whether I'm on stage or working with a client, it's those light bulb moments, those awarenesses they receive, and takes me back to when I was raising my son, and he would get those, and you just see them with your kids, and it just, it's, parenting, I think, is servant leadership at its finest. And I think it's very underappreciated in our culture. I think that when we're coaching a client, or, we're helping someone really work through some things that maybe they've been sitting with for years, or they're like, the client is like, I don't know why I can't ask for what I want. And when they realize it and they begin to heal, again, it doesn't solve all the problems in the moment, but when they get that sense of hopefulness, not hopelessness, that is just, it's better than getting paid money, like you said.
Yeah, absolutely. Like the money at that point, if it was like, again, this is why I asked the whole question about hiring somebody that is at a lower thing. It's like at some point, it's so self-satisfying to be able to have that experience with somebody. It's almost like I just want to pay you to coach you so that I can have the experiences of coaching. It's this weird dichotomy because if you paid them, they wouldn't get the same transformation.
Well, and so I don't know if you've run into this, but I've had people say, will you coach me for free? I can't afford your services. And here's what I say to them. I was $600,000 in debt and I paid for a coach. I didn't receive a volunteer. I paid somebody and I thought it was a lot of money. Here's why I paid them. And studies, actually psychological studies will show this, is when we put skin in the game, when we put money onto something, we take the advice, the communication, and the contribution 10 times more seriously than if we get it for free. And I actually learned this. I did a trip to Tijuana, Mexico, to build called Homes for Hope. And we're talking to the person who runs the program. And one of the entrepreneurs said, well, why don't you just give them the land and give them the home and, just be like full heart in. He's like, we did that. And here's what we found. They sold the house. So we gave you a house and they sold it. We found when they bought the land and we built the house, we put our labor and money into building them the home, 85% of the people kept the home because they had skin in the game. They put, and to buy land, for people who don't make a lot of money, it's a big purchase. It's an earned experience. It's a journey of satisfaction. It's not a journey of happiness. It's not a journey of charitable. It's a journey of satisfaction. The highs and the lows, and I got a budget. You know how this goes. And so you got to buy the land. And he's telling us this story. I'm like, oh my gosh. See, it's like, if we could have just given it all away and it would have kept 85%, we would have continued to do it. But we want to build, and this was his mission statement, we want to build homes for hope. And that is for families to build their next generation. And if they're just going to sell it as an asset, like, something they found on the street, that's not what we do. So when we coach people for free, oftentimes they don't appreciate or value the interaction, the advice given, or the interaction of the questions being asked. So yeah, I've worked with people on price before, and I've worked with some people for little to next to nothing, but they've got to put something in order to get something out. So
I chose, again, and everything comes down to model and business. There's no like one right way, one wrong way. And I could see myself changing this in the future. This is based off of my personality, what I chose. I guess for me to like feel like money, because of the way I just feel about money is just no more than a tool. And maybe to a point that it holds me back, right? There's people who say, oh, well, you just don't respect money enough to get enough of it. And that could be true, but it doesn't hold a lot of weight for me. So I could pay $10,000, $20,000. And because I know I can go make that much money, it's like, I'm just looking for one or two things out of it. But what I found for myself that I care more about than money is reputation. And I found that in my clients as well. Clients will pay you and they'll have an okay experience or a bad experience. And they're like, they'd rather lose the money than and be unhappy or happy, whatever, than share what you've done with them with the other people around them. And so I stopped asking for money and said, look, we have all worked with clients who you could bend over backwards for, and they're still unhappy. Even if they gave you all their money, they're still unhappy. The one thing I want to avoid in my life is unhappy people. Like the plague, I want to avoid them. So the way I determine if somebody is a good client for Sam is if they're willing to tell and personally introduce me through text or phone call or email somehow to 10 people that they know. If they're not willing to personally introduce me, it means one of a few things. One, what we did for them just wasn't good enough. They're not happy or they don't like me enough. Any one of those three is fine by me. It doesn't mean they're bad or I'm bad. It just means it's not a good fit and I move on. Right. I don't want people in my circle who aren't willing to share me with their circle, right? If we don't have that level of trust or that level of reputation built up. So I got rid of charging money and started charging reputation because reputation, I think people guard more than they guard money. Well, I'm curious what your thoughts are about that.
Well, what I heard you say is you figured out what was most important to you. And when I think of like, when I give a reference to somebody, if I were to refer Sam Knickerbocker to a friend of mine for coaching services, I want Sam to make me look good and solve my friend's problem. I've referred in vendors, where the vendor drops the ball. I don't refer anymore because my reputation gets impacted, to your point. So I think that the referral reputation model makes a lot of sense to people. But going back to something you asked me earlier, and this is a struggle because I really do value people. I think people are often, I see sometimes more potential in them than they see in themselves. Sure. And I've recognized and realized, and my coach has helped me significantly with this, is that you can't save everybody. Specifically, you can't save someone from themselves. And for me, I've realized that the people I want to work with, I'll go through the fires of hell with someone if they're willing to do the work. And for me, I have to get that person who's passionate about growing, and that person who's passionate about arriving at some new parts of self-awareness that they didn't have before. And I know other coaches do it differently. I know a lot of coaches teach a process. They teach EOS or they teach scaling up. Great processes. I use both in my practice. But I love the person who realizes I'm stuck and I don't know why. I'm stuck and I don't have the life I want. I'm stuck. I don't have the marriage I want. I'm stuck. I don't have the business I want. That, to me, that person, it feels like a kindred spirit. So there's that chemical connection with them as well. Like, I've been stuck. I know what it's like to be stuck. Would you like to not be stuck? Like, oh my God, I'd love not to be stuck. Cool. Let's have a conversation. That to me is super fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Couldn't agree more. So let's shift this though, because I think this is a huge principle. I don't know if you've seen you may even know some of these people, which is funny. But have you heard of the documentary Undercover Billionaire?
So I've heard of the documentary Undercover Billionaire. I've got friends who've been on Undercover Boss. If that's kind of in that same spot. Yeah, it's
a little different. So I would say it's a very. The purpose of the shows are wildly different. So Undercover Billionaire, the baseline of it is they take these people who are billionaires or at least multi-millionaires, right? And they drop them off in a city that nobody knows them in. Is the goal, and they have $100, and in 90 days they have to build a business that's valued at $1 million. And if they if they aren't able to do that, then they have to invest $1 million into their business themselves.
I've seen the premise. Yes, I've not watched any episodes.
Okay, so it's fascinating. It is so wildly fascinating because so far they've had Glenn Stearns, then there's some designer chick from California, and then Monique. She's the wife of Timberland, the rapper. Anyways, I forget her actual last name, because they all use pseudonyms in the city. So you watch their pseudonym. Sure. And then Grant Cardone is on there. And what's fascinating is just the entirely different approaches that they all go into connecting. So Glenn, he went and he gets dropped off in Erie, Pennsylvania, and he just starts going and looking for scraps that he can sell. So he runs a mortgage business. That's what his actual business is. Goes and looks for scraps that he can sell to level up this business, and ends up creating a barbecue something. And then Monique, she's like very spiritual, religious, all these things. And so the moment she lands, she goes to a church. She gets a free, everybody else is sleeping in their cars. She gets a free something and moves on and gets her thing. The other lady goes to an inn, she's like, okay, we're going to redesign this space and turn it into a different business. And Grant, he goes out and he says, okay, but he was the only one. And this is what I think is so, well, I don't know, I guess him and the designer girl, but they went in and they said, look, I'm going to go in, I'm going to add a ton of value. I'm going to do a ton of work for free. I'm going to work 100% for free to show what I can do for you. I'm going to show you that I'm worth X. So I'm going to say, hey, are you willing to, I'm going to go do this. If I can triple your investment, I don't get any money. If I can triple your investment into advertising or whatever it is, then can we have a conversation?
Right.
Sure.
Right.
So then he shows him in one weekend that he can do that and says, okay, so how about if I can grow your business X, Y, Z, then how about you upfront me a certain amount of money so we can go get this happening? And so that's how, and anyways, it's just fascinating. But free coaching, I think that that's a huge value add where you're willing to do a little bit, those free half-hour segments,
right?
Not because it's not worth it, but because this is your way of showing the value that you can add. And that's a springboard. It doesn't always end with these free coaching calls, but it's a springboard into, you have to be willing to do some free things up front to build the credibility, even if you have tons of credibility, to build that for yourself. So then you can charge or ask for those bigger numbers.
Well, so I think it's a great point to mention this. So anybody who hears me on your show, all they have to do is go to todd@extraordinaryadvisors.com, and I'm giving them 30 minutes for free, just like I gave the CEOs who are in chaos and crisis during COVID. And then, when you tack it into the book, on our website, From Suck to Success, I'm giving away a free chapter, because to your point, I can sit there and tell everybody how great I think I am as a coach, or read about it, experience it. And if it's for you, great. And if it's not, that's okay too, because we're not for everybody. And that's part of the deal, is just to show up and demonstrate that value. And it's again, I can tell you the joy of a light bulb moment. If you can experience that light bulb moment and that breakthrough of getting unstuck, there's no sales are required. You either want it or you don't.
Yeah, I completely agree. So I just wanted to hit that because we did talk quite a bit of it doesn't serve you to give away free content or free coaching. And to a degree, a long-term coaching relationship, I think that that's true. And I know that that's true. And I also know that that the flip side is true as well. We've got to, everybody, you have to be willing to lead with value. You have to be willing to lead with, hey, I'm going to put this book together. I'm going to put free coaching together. I'm going to do certain things just to get out there and show you what I can do. And that's a little taste. And then once you get the little taste, you're either going to like the taste or not. If you love it, let's get you the whole jar of Kool-Aid. If you don't like it, that's fine. I take
a boundaries approach. So I'm not going to give you away the entire book. I'll give you a chapter. I'm not going to give you a year of coaching, but I'll give you 30 minutes. And I've had people who've taken the 30 minutes and then reach out to me 8 months later. I'll hop on another call with them. I mean, it's not a matter of wanting to be stingy with my time, but also to the pivot of the people who maybe aren't necessarily a great coaching fit for me. Energy vampires and people who want to hand out, not a hand up. I'm not for them.
Yep. No, I completely agree. Man, well, thank you so much for coming on. I'm curious, where are they going to get your book? Where are they going to get, if they did want, you said that URL pretty fast, so slow down a little bit.
Absolutely. And I get excited, when we get excited, we get passionate. So the book is called From Suck to Success, A Guide to Extraordinary Entrepreneurship. The website is fromsucktosuccess.com. If that's too much, just look for me, Todd Palmer at Extraordinary Advisors. There'll be backlinks to all of my other channels, and connect with me on social media. And I'm happy to, again, to our point of giving something to someone to be of service to others, happy to give 30 minutes of my time, and happy to give a free chapter starting on February 9th, 2021. Yeah,
love it. And honestly, guys, if you guys aren't taking advantage of this, I'm going to share one story just from me. And it's, I don't know how it makes me look, but that doesn't matter. So I was listening to a podcast called John Lee Dumas, EO on Fire, Entrepreneurs on Fire, back when he was doing Every Day. And there was a woman who was a coach, just like Todd. And she was from Canada. She offered a free 30-minute phone call. This was, I scheduled it for December 23rd, 2017. right? I had a decent year. I was working my butt off, working tons of hours. My wife didn't see me, and I was thinking, okay, I've got to figure this out. Finally, I need to talk to somebody because I don't know what's holding me up, right? In 30 minutes, much like what Todd just said about some of his clients, in 30 minutes, she helped me get down to the perspective that my inability to succeed in my new career was simply that I didn't believe I was worthy of success.
Yep.
That was a core belief. I knew exactly why, everything. And it was like, once the subconscious belief that I was unworthy was brought to my consciousness, I was like, oh crap, I'm totally worthy. Like, I'm totally into this. That conversation quadrupled my income. A 30-minute free conversation. I didn't end up coaching with her. She got nothing. I mean, other than maybe she sees my business on social media and stuff. Outside of that, she got nothing out of it other than the gratification of being that person. I didn't pay anything, but I was in a position where I needed that 30-minute leg up. Okay. And it changed my business, my kids' business, and all of my clients that I've worked with since, and all of the people that I've taught to be able to do what I'm doing, because I was willing to suspend my disbelief and get on a 30-minute phone call. Okay. I can't stress this enough. If you have the opportunity to talk to Todd for 30 minutes, just do it. Even if you think I'm lost, there's no way, I'm not in a position to grow. Talk to him, because maybe you are, and you're just there's so much pressure in life that you don't think you are, but maybe you are. Maybe it's time. Maybe it's your time to launch into your dreams. So don't pass up on this opportunity. I can't stress it enough, because it changed my life, a 30-minute conversation. Sure. Not everybody offers that. There's a few people who understand that they've got to lead with value, and Todd's one of them. Please don't waste your life not getting the growth and help that you need. It's just not worth it.
Awesome. Sam, thanks so much for having me on your show today. I really appreciate you. Yeah,
no problem. I'm super excited for this to go out, and thank you. I'm excited for your book, and we'll have to look at it, get on Audible when it gets.
Man.
Okay. We'll talk to you guys later. Thanks so much. And we'll catch you guys next time on the Fuel Your Legacy show.
Thanks for joining us. If what you heard today resonates with you, please like, comment, and share on social media. Tag me. And if you do give me a shout out, I'll give you a shout out on the next episode. Thanks to all of those who've left a review. It helps spread the message of what it takes to build a legacy that lasts. And we'll catch you next time on Fuel Your Legacy.